Samasta Jana Kalyane Naratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram. Shri Makarand and Venkat Ramanji, Namaskaram. You saw the beautiful clip, Bhagavan Maharaj's experience with Ramana Maharshi and also Gurudev's experience with Ramana Maharshi. There's one more line to Tapovanji's experience which did not come out in the documentary. When the ashram, whoever was in charge, was asking Tapovan Maharaj to have prasad, probably slightly forcing, and Tapovan Maharaj said no. But that other person was slightly insisting. At that time, what Ramana Maharshi said was, he got his prasad already, let him go. Now, please think over it. What is that prasad? The power of silence. Gurudev's dynamism also came from silence. His oratory also was born from silence. Once we can get that kind of a stillness within, then what comes out from that is divine. And fortunate that we had one such manifestation of silence in Thiruvannamalai, very close to our time. Like otherwise we have heard of great rishis of silence few centuries back, few thousand years ago, but here, few decades ago, a person actually lived embodiment of silence. We take those classes, Sardarshan and Upadesaram. Even in Sandipani, where we study, we go through these books. So that way, these two texts and Ramana Maharshi is of extreme importance for us in Chinmaya Mission. And I'm very glad the second lecture, Swami Chinmayananda's memorial lecture, first one was the Guru, Swami Shivananda himself, and the second one was from the person of silence, who again both our Gurus have met. Tapovan Maharaj and Gurudev met him. So it's very apt that the second lecture, we have invited Ramana Kendra to be with us. This is only to make everybody understand how lovely spiritual bond Chinmaya Mission and Ramana Kendra has. And what regards and reverence Gurudev had for Ramana Maharshi. That reminiscence is very important for us. And the last point, somebody offered land to Chinmaya Mission in Thiruvannamalai in late 50s, mid 60s, around that time. Gurudev said, no, we don't need this land. There's a Ramana Kendra which is doing so well. We don't have to go there and start our center. Let's go where there is nothing much happening. Let's go. That's the visionary. That's the missionary Gurudev was. If somewhere something is already established, he was not keen because Ramana Kendra is doing so beautiful Ramanashramam there. What is the need to go and start a center? He did not. He said, no, you can offer the land to Ramanashramam, we don't need it there. Now that's the kind of regard and also the vision he had. I'm grateful to both of them who have come here to give their time and speak to us about Ramana Maharshi and dynamic silence. I welcome everyone here. Thank you.
Has helped me I quote, "A book will not transmit its knowledge to the reader unless he reads every word of the book with respect." This is Swami Chinmayananda. As we saw the video before, and it'll steal some of my thunder, but I will try to minimize the repetition. Both Swami Chinmayananda and Swami Tapovan Maharaj had blessings from Bhagavan at a very young age, mere teenagers when they first came to him. These spiritual teachers spent their lives reviving Hinduism through the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. No coincidence, for Bhagavan Ramana touched similarly the lives of many saints with his silent power. Quoting Swami Chinmayananda's words, which we saw on the film, "After high school exams were over on a package railway ticket, I was roaming through South India. As the train streamed through the countryside at halting speed, most of the passengers in my compartment suddenly peered through the windows in great excitement and bowed reverently to an elaborate temple beyond. Inquiring about it, I was told that it was a Thiruvannamalai temple. Thereafter, the talk of my fellow travelers turned to Ramana Maharshi. The word Maharshi conjured up in my mind ancient forest retreats and superhuman beings of divine glow. Though I was at that time a convinced atheist, I chose to take the next available train to Thiruvannamalai. At the ashram, I was told that the Maharshi was in the hall and anybody was free to walk in and see him. As I entered, I saw on the couch an elderly man wearing but a loincloth, reclining against a round bolster. I sat down at the very foot of the couch. The Maharshi suddenly opened his eyes and looked straight into mine. I looked into his. A mere look that was on. I felt that the Maharshi was in that split moment looking deep into me, and I was sure he saw all my shallowness, confusions, faithlessness, imperfections, and fears. I cannot explain what happened in that one split moment. I felt opened, cleaned, healed, and emptied. A whirl of confusions, my atheism dropping away, but skepticism in to question, wonder, and search. But the boy who left the hall was not the boy who had gone in a few minutes before. After my college days, my political work, and after years of stay at Uttarkashi at the feet of my master Tapovanji, I knew that what I gained on the Ganges banks was that which had been given to me years before by the saint of Thiruvannamalai on that hot summer day. By a mere look. During the course of a talk in 1982, Swamiji said, "Shri Ramana is not a theme for discussion. He is an experience. He is a state of consciousness. Shri Ramana was the highest reality and the cream of all scriptures in the world. He was there for all to see how a master can live in perfect detachment, though in the mortal form he lived as the beauty and the purity of the infinite." I'll state two incidents which happened and were witnessed by many people, which demonstrate the highest respect that Pujya Swamiji had for Shri Ramana, and more importantly, is a demonstration of Swamiji's humility. During a bhiksha at a devotee's home, the devotee praised Swamiji's service to humanity, saying, "Swamiji, saints like you and Shri Ramana." Now, Swamiji stood up and let him finish the sentence. He thundered, "Sages like Bhagavan Ramana are original manufacturers. We are only distributors of what they manufacture." What humility, what humility. During another time, Swami Chinmayananda was asked why Swamiji revered Bhagavan Ramana so much. Pat came the reply, a solid response as always. He said, while all other masters solve the problems of suffering seekers, Sri Ramana dissolved them all once for all. Similarly, Tapovan Maharaj, we saw, stated his experience. Nearly 35-40 years ago, I had the fortune of having darshan of Maharshi at Thiruvannamalai while he was living in a cave and with his mother and brother. On one midday, I, a young brahmachari at the time, climbed to the cave, saw Maharshi there, placed a bunch of ripe fruits, and as what happens in Thiruvannamalai even today, monkeys take it away. But Maharshi did not even flinch. Maharshi looked at my face lovingly. That is all. Not a single word was spoken. Supreme divine silence prevailed. 1 hour passed. Maharshi rose for taking his meals. I too rose from my seat, bowed again, and began to walk from the cave. Maharshi was the idol of peace and silence. It's the duty of all those who admire and follow him to seek after that divine silence. The inquiry of that divine silence is nothing but the inquiry, who am I? Tapovan Maharaj goes on to say, "O man, inquire and be immersed in that inner silence. Do all the work of this world to reach that goal, to attain that divine silence. If you already have that silence, then do work for Loka Sangraha, if you like. Just as the ocean is dancing, laughing, and roaring with its thundering waves, but its inner depth is always perfect silence, peace, and stillness." Swamiji, today I want to thank Chinmaya Mission for spreading Bhagavan's core teachings, Tvadesasaram Saddarshana, in all their centers, here overseas especially. Many ripe spiritual minds have come to Bhagavan Ramana through an introduction to his teachings from Chinmaya Mission. Many spiritual Ramana devotees are also members of Chinmaya Mission. And this is not surprising because there is a natural confluence here because the focus is on Jnana Marga in both institutions. Mumukshus seeking to cross the ocean of samsara flock to both these institutions. Swami Chinmayananda spearheaded a global Hindu spiritual cultural renaissance and brought Hindu spiritual texts and values to everyone, teaching it in English all across India and abroad. His was a simple but important vision, again in his own words, to convert Hindus to Hinduism. We at Sri Ramanashramam are also grateful for Swamiji taking up the co-editorship responsibility of the first magazine that was started after the Mahanirvana of Ramana Maharshi. This was started in 1952 in Bombay, called Divine. And Swamiji also wrote many inspiring articles along with being the co-editor. He brought an enthusiastic, joyous, inspirational energy to his lectures. His sense of humor is legendary. He exemplified what I always think, Advaita is for winners in the world. Friends, the light of wisdom that was lit on the mountain slopes of Arunachala blossomed into an effulgence of spiritual knowledge the world over. Shri Ramana Maharshi said there are three forms of developments of sadhaks. One is a gunpowder-like sharpness. The other one is dry wood, another one is a wet wood. So Swamiji and Tapon Maharaj are like gunpowder devotees. All they needed was a spark of silence and wisdom from Ramana Maharshi, and then they could just get the input of the spiritual wisdom. I will now express a few words about the uniqueness of Bhagavan Ramana, Bhagavan Sri Ramana, the ocean of grace. He was, as you all know, accessible all 24 hours to anyone, humans and animals. No permission was needed to see him. There was no special darshan hours. Devotees, in fact, till end, used to sleep around him. He used to sleep on the couch, and people used to sleep all around him. So much so that in the night when he had to wake up to answer the call of nature, he had to step over sleeping devotees. And he would shine his torchlight against his stomach and use that reflected light so as nobody was disturbed. And there would also be dogs sleeping around in the room, and he used to take them outside to answer the call of nature too. He was a unique guru who served his disciples and not the other way around. In fact, he used to, biggest demonstration of that was, he used to wake up every day, 2 o'clock in the morning, to go to the kitchen to cut vegetables for the morning cooking. And whatever he prepared was most delicious. Now, he also would use that opportunity in the kitchen to impart the highest teachings of Vedanta, especially to those child widows who used to be cooking. And he used to explain them in the most simple terms, the highest forms of Advaitic teachings. I'll just quote one such saying, his quote. You must cover your vegetables when you cook them, then only they'll keep their flavor and be fit for food. It's the same with mind. You must put a lid over it and let it simmer quietly. Then only does a man or a woman become food fit for God to eat. Okay. Harindranath Chattopadhyay, a famous poet, greatness sat easily on him as beauty on a sunset cloud, albeit with devastating effect, as often as not. For all our ideas as to how the great should act seem to be dismissed by him with a smile of simple disavowal. End of quote. In a traditional sense, he was not a scholar, but scholars went to him to have their doubts clarified. He never wrote anything of his own accord. What he wrote at the request of others fills a few books. His mother tongue was Tamil, but he wrote enchanting poems not only in Tamil, but also in Sanskrit, Malayalam and Telugu. Scholars in these languages are astonished at the beauty of the poetry. He also had a delightful sense of humor. Once, when his high school teacher came to see him, and we all know Maharshi left Madurai by writing a note and not finishing high school. And he says, when Maharshi gave the high school teacher one of his compositions, the teacher, who was impressed, asked him questions about the verses in that work. Maharshi looked at all the devotees and said, quote, "Look, I left Madurai scared of answering his questions in school. He has come all the way to ask questions again." End of quote. He was silent much of the time and dispelled doubts through his silence. His was the silence of the mind. His was the language of pure consciousness. Western devotee Duncan Greenleaf says, I know no other person whose mere presence has thus enabled me to make the personality drop deep down into the abyss of nothingness where it belongs. I found no other human being who so emanates his grace that it can plunge others deep into ecstasy of timeless, omnipresent being. Ramana Maharshi's Ulladu Narpadu, which has been translated as Sabdarshana for everyone, has two Mangala slokas which saints write, the verses of benediction. The first verse begins with, in Tamil, Ulladu, that which is. The second verse begins with the word Marana, that is death, that which is not. I think Maharshi was the first person to use the term Marana or death in Mangala Shloka. And why not? It is most apt, for it was a death experience that made him realize his Atma. Death of the ego, the body consciousness, was the birth of the eternal awareness, the Aham Spurana. Ramana exists in Marana when we, and even if you turn the words around, Marana becomes Ramana. When we think of Marana, friends, we should think of Ramana especially. It will drive away the fear of death. Bhagavan Ramana saw himself in others and others in himself. Therefore, there was no one to bless and no one to be blessed. In the state of pure Advaita, there is no other. Therefore, the question of Guru and Shishya did not arise. One of the spiritual paradoxes is that one who lays down his life finds it. One who surrenders one's individuality becomes more individual than anyone else. The Jivan Mukta, who has dissolved the ego which exploits and perverts one's individual characteristics, and therefore these characteristics in the Jivan Mukta can grow to their true likeness, neither stunted nor warped, shining forth more clear than in other people. The books in the ashram during his time were always made to be kept back in their places. Cloths covering the couches were scrupulously clean and beautifully folded. The ashram hall was swept out several times daily. The books, as I said, had to be placed where they were taken from. The loin cloth was all that he had. Maybe two, one was washed and the other he wore. But it was always gleaming white. And it's no, the ashram has not done any photoshopping to make it look whiter. That was how he used to be meticulously clean. The two clocks in the hall were adjusted daily to daily radio time. He was affable and courteous to all visitors. He expressed no pontifical solemnity in his exposition. His speech was vivacious, full of laughter. So infectious was his laughter that even who did not know Tamil would spontaneously join in. Right up to the end, he joked. In fact, he used to joke about the most painful tumor one can get, sarcoma on his arm. He used to describe it as a Navaratna, glowing. And his jokes always bore spiritual instructions. His face was like that of water, always changing, yet always the same. There was love, luminous understanding in his eyes. Bhagavan Ramana came neither to found a new religion nor give guidance strictly within an existing one, but to open a path to those who seek in all religions of the world over, responding to the conditions of the world in which he came. And that was the most difficult time he existed. Think of it, 2 world wars, the plague epidemic, the Holocaust, and the fight for independence. There was turmoil everywhere, but in the ashram, it was always that as if the external world did not exist. It was only Atman reigning. So that was also a proof that the external world can be whatever, but the internal poise and the peace is what is achievable, under Sadguru's watchful eyes. He opened the direct path of self-inquiry based on Advaita, which had become too arduous even in those days for our spiritually dark age. It requires no ritual, forms of worship, no priesthood, no outer science or special observations. People can practice it in the workshop, kitchen, city office, as well in an ashram. It requires no great burden of theory. The task here is to transcend the ego sense, so that only the self, which alone was, is and will be, remains in eternal consciousness, seeing all the panorama of the world as its own manifestation. As Bhagavan said, you have only to unrealize unreality and the reality will appear of its own. Here, there is not one self discovering another, but an awakening awareness of the permanent self in all of us by constantly being the self. Knowing is being. While meditating, Ramana also taught us to concentrate our consciousness on the spiritual heart which exists on the right side of the heart. The meditation awakes a current of awareness, consciousness of I in this heart. Not the ego sense, but a feeling of the essential I, the universal self. With practice, this consciousness becomes a constant undercurrent to all actions of life. This awareness deepens into an ever vaster space beyond all understanding, consuming the ego and remains as a realization of the self. The Brahmastra of asking, where did this thought come from and why and to whom, leads each thought back to the basic I thought. Who am I? There is of course no mental or verbal answer to the question, who am I? We could keep asking whole day and there'll just be mind-given answers. But the real focus of the inquiry is to realize that the ego is only phantom and our duty is just to be in that state of abidance that follows. As Ramana said, summa iru, just be. We can attend to the affairs of the life knowing that Atman is unaffected by them. Every attack of greed, anger or desire can be dispelled by vichara. Ramana never encouraged anyone to give up the life in the world. By rejecting the thought, I am the doer, and remembering only I am, by means of vichara, one can reside anywhere. Only inwardly can one withdraw into solitude by abiding in the universal solitude of the heart. Finally, it awakens love through knowledge. Friends, in conclusion, Swami Chinmayananda ji is a mighty, thundering personality who expounded the knowledge of Advaita Vedanta worldwide. He brought this to millions of people, while Bhagavan Ramana is a gentle, greatest impersonality who exemplifies, personifies Advaita Vedanta. These two gurus will be enshrined for eons as the guides for mumukshus seeking to end the cycles of birth and death. Hari Om. Thank you for your attention.
All of you, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. Thank you, Swami Mitrananda ji, and such an honor to to listen to the president of Ramanashramam, Dr. Venkat Ramananji, such an honor. And Mr. Nambiar, the president of this great organization, thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Ram Mohanji, who is sitting here. He's like my mentor, and it's like a student. The teacher always gives him homework. He gives him some tasks. You should do this, you should do that. So in a sense, he assigned this topic to me, even though it might have come from, I don't know where it came from the divine. And I can't tell you with how much trepidation I was felt, To speak about the dynamic silence of Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi is itself an oxymoron. How can you speak about silence, isn't it? Silence has to be experienced, and in that silence, as we've heard throughout the last hour or so, a certain and subtle transformation occurs, isn't it? And we are supposed to experience that. To speak about silence is itself a contradiction, isn't it? So what should one do? I thought to myself, what can I do? So as a teacher and as an intellectual, what happens to us, Swamiji, is we over-intellectualize, we think so much. And I said to myself that now I will not do that. Let me offer one or two thoughts, like they say Upadesha Saram, that's a very great example, but some Saram, because when people go, they want something to take away after having spent. So here are some thoughts that I came up with. The first one is this: no person is to be enlightened. No person is to be enlightened. The freeing of consciousness from personhood is enlightenment. The freeing of consciousness from personhood is enlightenment. So I thought I would offer you this as a thought, because we are practitioners, as it were, of Vichar Marga. So I'll tell you one more small anecdote. It relates to the great Ramchandra Gandhi, a great philosopher and also grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And he said that Ramana Maharshi saved my life. So I said, how? He said, I would have gone crazy, but it is his Vichar Marg which saved me. Because he studied analytical philosophy with Strawson, he went to Oxford, and his mind was too active, and he would have gone crazy. That's what he told me. I don't know. I can't say he would have gone crazy, but the grace of Ramana, which manifests in Vichar Marg, because if you can't stop the mind from thinking, you should ask, what is the source of thoughts? Who am I? We've heard that already. So, these are my two small anecdotes, and now let me come to my talk, which I've organized actually around 3 shlokas, which everyone here knows, most probably better than me, because I must confess my Sanskrit is hopeless. I remember how I failed at Sanskrit all the time. I kept trying to learn it, and I kept failing at all stages of my life. So forgive me if there are errors. But the first one, everyone knows this: Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam. Everyone knows this. It is from Sridhara, a commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam, And why is this famous? Because Swami Vivekananda started his Chicago address at the World Parliament of Religion with this famous shloka. This shloka is about anugraha, kripa. So actually my talk is about 3 points, each of which is illustrated with the shloka. The first is anugraha. Now, why am I starting with this shloka? Not only because, mukam karoti vachalam, etc., that without that grace you can't even utter a word. In fact, I'm reminded of an anecdote of the great Swami Chinmayananda himself, whose 108th birth anniversary we are here to celebrate. He went up to Rishikesh, and he was a reporter a journalist for National Herald, and he wanted to check out the Swamijis there and expose them. That's what he said to his friends. And so he had his, pad and pen, and he was a bit of a chain smoker, if I'm allowed to say that, and also drink endless cups of tea. And one day, Swami Shivananda asked him to speak, and he couldn't utter anything. He just started something, when I came here or something, and after that, he couldn't utter anything. Now, the point I'm trying to make is Swami Mitrananda also mentioned the great change. What is the link between speech and silence? It's something all of us need to think. In a way, Swamiji has already given us the clue that the greatest words come from the depths of silence. But the point I wanted to make with this first shloka is not only a point about anugraha or kripa or grace, which was also in a sense mentioned by the previous speaker, very beautifully mentioned. Bhagwan is an ocean of grace. But also to make the simple point that there's a great difference between mukam and maunam, between being mute and being silent in that dynamic sense. So this is something for us to reflect. We belong to the mute category, not the maunis and the munis. So this was the first shloka, the first point. Now the second one. The second one is another shloka which is also very famous, and you'll all recognize it. Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Kamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So this is from the Dakshinamurti Stotram of the great Shankaracharya. And many people believe that Ramana Maharshi was an avatara of Dakshinamurti, right? And that story, wonderful story of a young boy of 16 facing the south, surrounded by these old sages, old men with beards and white hair, and all their doubts are removed. Isn't that a miracle? That the highest form of speech, as it were, is silence. And of course, there is that shloka also, where it is said, Gurostu maunam vyakhyanam shishyastu chinna sanchayaha. So the doubts are completely destroyed by that profound silence that, in a sense, Dakshinamurti represents. But what I was trying to say, the first point I said was anugraha, right? The second point, and the second shloka, to me, represents anubhava. So, in a way, you might even create a causal connection. You need anugraha, then you have anubhava. Because without anugraha, where is the anubhava? And in that sense, I want to come back to this point later, but I want to just mention briefly that all of us in India today, we have to be eternally grateful to the sages of modern India. Because this nation of the Bharatas was in ancient times created by the rishis, and in modern times it was recreated by these sages, None of us would have been here had it not been for the great sages, of Bharata. So when the topic was, as it were, assigned to me, I immediately said yes. Because what happens is there are so many gurus, so many sampradayas, in a way, in modern India. And I think Swamiji said, a fleet of sages. He used the word fleet. There's so many in India. That's our great, I would say, good luck, good fortune. But many are in silos. And this program is unique, I believe, Swamiji, and I congratulate you for that. Because you want to interconnect, you want to connect all these sages who seem different, but they're not. And I'll come to that in the third verse in a moment. But the point about this verse is that Anubhuti or Anubhava is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma. It is not Vichar or Achar. They come afterwards. So and what are the Vedas? They are the consolidated condensation of that great spiritual experience. And again, I'm reminded of an interesting anecdote about Swami Vivekananda and his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, because everybody talks about Swami Vivekananda, but he said that Sri Ramakrishna could have created 1,000 Vivekanandas. What does that mean? That means it is from that ocean of experience that action comes. So I will come back to that, but now to the third point, which is about the gurus to whom we are so grateful today. We are here to express our gratitude, isn't it? So again, this verse, everybody knows this verse, though people say it's from the Guru Gita, but I'm told it's from the Vishvasara Tantra. That's what I'm told. If you go to the Mantra Pushpam, it says Vishvasara Tantra. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So this is an Akhanda Mandala of the Guru principle. It's indivisible. So in a way, all the self-realized, all the Mahatmas, all the Gurus, whoever, I mean, it's like the spout that collects the water that comes to your hand when you want to drink. Again, an example from the Kathamrit, which was written by M. Mahendranath Gupta. So that form that is most suitable to you, the Guru takes that form. But there are not many Gurus, just as there are not many bodies here. It seems like that, and it's true, in a sense it's true, because, you know, we experience that whole process of birth, and many here have given birth, so you can't say it's all illusion. I'm not an illusionist in that sense, and we needn't get sort of caught up in, you know, Adhyasa, Maya and all that. I mean, it's real, of course, but that's the point. But it is real because it is informed by consciousness. Otherwise, you know, lifeless bodies and matter. There is an interesting, again, story when Swami Chinmayananda went up into Uttarkashi. It's in the biography written by Nancy Ji. So he says he found an old Swamiji there, and his whole body was rotting. He was very ill. And there were maggots in the body, actually. So some maggots fell off. And the Swamiji picked up the maggot and put it back, saying, "There, son, go, enjoy." And he said to Swami Chinmayananda, he said, "Matter goes back to matter. What do we have to do with it?" And so that, you know, that marana, smarana, I'm you know, reminded of that. So I was given half an hour, and I think I have a few minutes left. But I want to, because I want to express my gratitude today, and so this is the third point actually. So you have anugraha, then you have anubhava, and then some action, achara, something should follow from it, isn't it? So that gratitude should result in something. And I think, you know, Swami Chinmayananda said it, just give, don't calculate, give whatever you have. You know, don't hold back. If it works, it works, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I think that on the 108th, you know, birth anniversary of Swami Chinmayananda, I think we should all say that every, you know, cell in our body should vibrate, you know, to that cosmic rhythm where we feel a part of the cosmos and we want to give everything, holding nothing back. At least that is my wish and hope and sankalpa today, because how is this gratitude otherwise to be expressed other than to give whatever it is that there is to give? If it's possible to give, you should give it. So to express my gratitude, I want to share with you just a couple of anecdotes before winding up. Which is, I was in 9th or 10th, and I was visiting my aunt's house, Atte's house in Baroda. And I was told that Swami Chinmayananda was giving talks on the Bhagavad Gita. in the, I think, palace grounds or someplace. So I went, and my Atimbe was very skeptical. He had his own spiritual practice. But somehow I went, and I was sitting next to somebody, and that gentleman was asking me, he says, like, why have you come here? So I said, I'm very interested, I don't know what this is. And everyone says the Gita is great, I don't know anything about it. So he says, like, so I was also curious, and I was asking him, you know, he was talking to me in Hindi. So I asked him, why have you come? Because when he asked me why have I come, and so I said, I'm just curious. He said, why do you come here? You read the Naneshwari. He said, what's your mother tongue? So I said, my mother tongue is Marathi. He said, you read the Naneshwari. Why have you come here? So I said, why have you come here? So he said, I came to learn English.